Greetings, family. Greetings, and welcome to the Art of Rising. We're here giving you some of the codes that you need for your life, and I'm always in search for extremely, extremely interesting people. So I happen to find one. I think you're gonna really, really enjoy this, brother. Wow, some of his background is incredible. Thank you, Christopher, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Omar. Great to be here.
Thank you. So let's just jump right into it, man. Tell us where you live and what are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, I'm Christopher Carlisle, and I live in Western Massachusetts. And I'm an Episcopal priest, somewhat unorthodox. Some people would say more unorthodox than they would like. But I've had kind of a varied career. I was just in a parish for 2 years, and church parish, and for 2 years, and I realized that wasn't for me. And I then got a job as the Episcopal chaplain at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, which is nearby, and had a wonderful experience there, largely because so many people on the university campus don't believe in God. And that means you get all kinds of interesting conversations, and you get called to account for what you're saying, and it's back and forth. And I had 25 wonderful years doing that, during which time I wrote both Pickett's Dream and For Theirs is the Kingdom, the two novels that I've written. And then after about 25 years, I finally woke up and realized, reading the stories of Jesus, that the way I was going about it was a disconnect from the stories I was reading, which was about a renegade who was out in the streets with people who were marginalized by the culture, eating and drinking and celebrating and healing and caring and hoping. And so I co-founded a community in Northampton, which is about 15 miles away, called Cathedral in the Night. And we decided to build a building out of light instead of out of walls, and to create a community of homed and homeless, rich and poor, young and old, as eclectic a group as we could put together. And the worship, which, now, at least in the Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church, is centered around Holy Communion, really came out of a supper, a dinner, a meal, a real meal that supported and sustained people who are hungry. And so we decided, well, the worship in Cathedral in the Night is going to be a real meal. And so every Sunday in the dark, we would have people create a big, hot, nutritious meal for everybody. And really, the action happened eating and talking and sharing needs and challenges and hopes. And I did that for 10 years, and then started another one in Greenfield, and did that for about 5 years. And now I'm working with military veterans who are suffering social isolation and risking suicide and so on. And that's a whole different, community.
Wow, incredible. That's fascinating. Some of the things that you've been through and throughout time. And then this realization. This is one of the things that really fascinate me and captivated me to say, hey, I have some of those thoughts too. We've spoke a little bit offline about how some of these things are what they are, but it's not exactly like these institutions are telling us. It's kind of like that. It's almost as if they put a little bit of truth in it just so you could believe all the other stuff that they're trying to control you with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just when you think like what I find is Jesus says all these strange, paradoxical things that seem to be pretty straight up forward, but generally they're not. And if you think you've gotten it, you probably have gotten, as you say, part of it, but
Mm.
underneath is a wellspring of wisdom that sometimes we avoid because it's just too hard to face. For example, people will say to me, that they will say, well, I don't really know that I'm can be part of Jesus's teachings because I'm such a hypocrite. Well, welcome to the club. You know, I mean, and it's just when you decide you need to jump over a bar that you miss the point. Jesus, the church has made Jesus's teachings into judgments, and they're not judgments. They're revelations of the way the human condition is. That's it. And so the question is, once you realize you have hypocrisies or you fail or whatever, that's okay. Open those things up, and then realize that they can be healed by connecting to other people.
This is true. Yeah, I find that to be true also. There's this other thing too that goes together with it. You ever speak to someone and they go, I'm not perfect. Only
Yeah,
God's perfect. And I'm like, what?
yeah,
Wait a minute. God doesn't make imperfect things.
right.
God makes perfect things.
Yeah,
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 we pick up some things along the way, and it is our job to get rid of those things. Yeah, that's true, because we
yeah.
have free will, but this thing about I'm a hypocrite and I can't. No, it's okay.
I had a mentor who was a real, you know, character. I tend to sort of gravitate toward those sorts of uh, people, and he actually was most of my connections are not with clergy, but he was an Episcopal priest. But I remember him talking to somebody and asking her the question. Um, uh, how many times have you been perfect today?
Mhm.
And she looked, aghast, and she said, well, never. I'm not perfect. And he said, that is a heresy. I think you've been perfect about 50 times today. And his point being that we have these moments of perfection
Mhm,
that look a lot like love, hope, trust.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
and then those moments when we're not perfect and we're angry, we're resentful, we
mhm,
we
mhm,
feel hatred towards something or somebody.
mhm,
But the point is that's the back and forth of everyday life, right? That's
mhm,
not that's
mhm.
not a judgment about who we are.
Right, right. Exactly, exactly. Then things happen. I mean, it's part of the process. We're shedding old stuff and working through other things. And usually when someone sees a deer in the forest, they go, "Oh my God, that's perfect. That's God." But then when they look at themselves, they go, oh no, no. Listen, God made the deer and God made you also
Yeah,
too.
that's a
So
very good
we
point.
don't yeah, we don't know what the deer is going through or their thoughts of how they jumped over that last log. Maybe they were like, I just can't jump over it the right way. Like, we don't know that,
Right, right.
but nevertheless, I feel that we are perfect. We're perfect. I know Don Miguel Ruiz, which made the four agreements, he speaks about that. Like we are perfect. We're
Yeah,
perfectly imperfect,
yeah,
like we're born perfect and we pass on perfect. We
yeah,
just do. It's just in between we pick up some garbage and
yeah,
we do.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
Mhm,
Um, I was just thinking, again, the institution has often, in order to make itself uh, necessary to people, it essentially conveys the message: we got the cards, you don't. Come
mhm.
here, I'll give you a card, but you better come back next week because you're going to need the card again.
Right.
And that's not to say that all institutions are bad, but it is to say that institutions create this behavior. Um, I say this to people all the time, and they don't, particularly church people, don't like hearing this. But in some ways, you know, institutions to survive take for themselves. They have to. That's how they survive. They need money, they need attention, they need all those sorts of things to keep them going.
Mm.
But the question is that reconcilable with Jesus, who gave
Mm.
everything away to thrive? So how do you make those two connections? And a lot of times you don't. And so people who are making judgments about the church should realize what they're saying is really, really important, and
Mhm.
not to say, well, that's just that's just me. No, you're reading dynamics about institutions correctly, and the question is, what do we do with that? And I
Mm.
think the answer very often is, what? I don't have to think about the institution right now.
Mm.
Jesus says this all the time. Who is my neighbor?
Mm.
Who is my neighbor? And that's the person I need to reach out to. And that's perfection right in that moment.
Wow, I'm glad you brought that up because I've often told people that, when they ask these Jesus, what are the commandments? What should we do? And he said, well, love thy neighbor as thyself, right? And I feel that he probably lost half the crowd right there. They probably walked off like this guy's way out, man.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not doing that. I'm not gonna no. Why?
yeah.
Because I'm selfish. I want to live. Yeah.
Well, and he knew that his role was not a popularity contest,
Mm,
because when you think about this, and this is just a startling, I think, realization was for me. Jesus died without a friend, without
mm,
a friend.
mm, mm,
And it was only after, when they started realizing that this was the way to the abundant life,
mhm,
that he was back on the screen.
True that. That's true. Amazing. And you seem like a man that is deep within your convictions, and you have all of it seems that you have lots of knowledge, lots of book knowledge, but you're following your heart. Like whatever comes in, like you're like, hey, I'm moving in this area. So in your bio, it does say that um you never liked going to church. One of the things, right? This
Still,
Episcopal priest who
still
never
don't.
liked going to church.
Yeah. Yeah. I just found it
Excuse
really
me.
dull and repetitive. And there's advantage to ritual that repeats in order to create a contemplative world in which to know yourself and know the world. So I'm not saying it's all bad,
Mm,
but I just find that faith has become sort of a an idea. You figure out what the map is or what the doctrines are, and then you have it because you believe it. But
mm,
faith is action. Faith is living. Faith is loving. Faith is laughing. Faith is
mm,
crying.
yeah, yeah,
Embracing all those
yeah,
physical things. Jesus didn't come to us as an idea. Jesus
mm,
came as a body,
mm,
and lived the most incredible renegade life for
mhm,
those 3 years that
mhm,
probably anybody has. And
mhm.
finally, in the fast lane, gave it all up for everybody else.
Right, right. Nothing written in a book there, right?
No, his gospels, his scriptures were Hebrew scriptures,
Right.
but the Christian scriptures, none of them
Mhm,
was written
mm,
in his lifetime.
right.
And after all, the word Christian was a word he never would have heard, because the word Christian
Mm,
was a word created or in the vocabulary of the Roman Empire, and it wasn't a positive word; it was a negative word.
mm,
Those renegade followers of that Jew named Jesus, that was what Christian meant. And it was, as I say, it was an institutional Roman Empire. It's an empire word.
right, right. Very interesting. I had no idea about that. And then you also speak about that you take heresy literally from the Greek word free to choose. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, so that was something that I sort of came upon, because I love, the thing is, words come from someplace. And so, and the fancy word for figuring out where a word came from is etymology. Where did it come from? Did it come from? Was it Middle English? Was it Middle French? Was it Greek? Was it Latin? What? And our language is made up of all of those strains. And so heresy, I looked at heresy, and in the most fundamental form, that is the Greek form, it means free to choose, which is pretty odd. This, back to your point about how you think one thing and all of a sudden the other thing. Wait a minute, I thought heresy was, you believe the wrong thing, as opposed to the freedom that is implied by the real meaning of heresy, which is the freedom to choose. So, in a lot of ways, for theirs is the kingdom. My renegade priest, Luke Hale, talks about heresy as freedom rather than judgment. And it's really pitched at the institutional church, which has used that word to make people feel as though they're wrong. And as opposed to they're free to make a choice. And obviously that doesn't mean all the choices work, but it's not about making a right or wrong choice. It's really about making a choice that works or doesn't work. And that really takes judgment out of the picture, because judgment has become so much a part of the church agenda that, it's no wonder people don't want to go.
Right.
They end up feeling badly about themselves.
Yeah, it's like, you could choose, but you better choose this one.
That's it.
It's like you just said I could choose. Yeah, I know. I do feel that underlying, tone where, like, once you say, oh, freedom, that's already like, freedom? What are you talking about? Like, hold on a second. Like, why? I just said freedom, like, and then when you do choose, something that's outside of those institutions, you're almost looked upon like, oh no, you're no good. You're no good. In fact, you're gonna burn in hell. Like, not for a 10-year bid, like for eternity. Like, what?
Right.
Like, I just maybe I don't know some things. Why don't you try to help me, and school me and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That's why when I meet someone, no matter what they believe in, it's fine. I want to know more about what is it that they believe in. I want to teach me. Although I've expressed some of my beliefs and I've had the door closed on me. Just strange.
Yeah. No, it's and it's back to this need to make people realize you're not judging them, you're asking questions that lay out the journey in front of them and in front of you that we ultimately all have to take together. The journey is not a solitary thing. We live in community. We're born into the world. The fabric of life and creation is community.
Right. Definitely. And we should question things too, right? That's was it Socrates and those? Yeah, there was like, question everything.
Exactly. And that's the only way to have any fun.
Right.
I mean, who wants to have a notepad and a pen and take down the answers like in a junior high math class? I mean,
right. Yeah.
But very often that seems to be the agenda, and it's and the thing is, it really does an enormous disservice to the Christian tradition. And I'll tell you right now, the current administration is not helping the message. It doesn't also, I mean, the voices, those right-wing voices, most of them have probably never even cracked the scriptures. I had a conversation with one of my veterans last week, when after after the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was fired. And he said, and we normally think of veterans as sort of being to the right. And he looked at me and he said, "What is he doing?" And I said, I don't know. He said, "It's sort of like asking a plumber to do neurosurgery."
Yeah, right,
You
right.
know? And I feel that often about when they're talking about, I mean, I think there's a recent sort of proclamation about Christianity becoming the official established religion, which, by the way, was why our church, our country was founded, not to have an established religion.
Right,
But I think to myself, and what brand of that are you promoting?
right,
It's
right,
certainly not the brand that I have anything to do with.
right. Certainly, certainly. I agree. I agree with you. If you know anything about the history of this country and some of the people who started some of these things, yeah, they were trying to get rid of religious persecution, get away from that, and just be more free and stuff like
Mm,
that, and allow. And if you look at some of the history books, they would show you deeply. They would say that the founding people who started some of these things were very open, like even with people who were indigenous to the land, like it was fine, like they weren't about to like
mm,
kill them or let alone like shun them out. No, not
mm,
at all. But then as the generations went by, there was other people who came in with other ideas and then started doing other things to prevent and keep down and push out the indigenous people from the
mm,
land, which
mm,
it's one of those things like, let's steal everything around here and then let's put up signs saying don't steal,
mm.
right?
That's right. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Archbishop Tutu, I'm not going to get this straight, but I had him come to the university and I spent
Mm,
some time
mm,
with him here. And then I went to South Africa and spent some time with him there right
mm,
when apartheid was falling. It
mm,
was a
mm,
very
mm,
exciting
mm,
moment. But he was talking about uh, I'm going to forget. I'll
mm.
have to I'll dig it up because
Okay,
it's
okay.
but it was a wonderful saying essentially about how the white people brought Christianity to South Africa,
Mm,
and how they essentially asked the indigenous people of South Africa to pray, and they closed their eyes, holding the Bible, closed their eyes, and when they opened their eyes, the indigenous South Africans had the Bible, and they had the land, and
mm.
I'm
Interesting.
it's a you should look that up because it's a
Okay.
brilliant
It sounds
insight.
familiar. I
Yeah.
know we know of Desmond Tutu. Wow, his work is just unmatchable, and I love those guys. Those guys are
Mm.
the renegades,
Yeah,
man. Those guys
they
are the
are. And
oh.
that they are. And if you're in his presence, I told when he was there, when we were there at Bishop's Court in Cape Town, it just happened that all the bishops in Southern Africa were there, and they had worship, and then they had this big reception afterward. And I had told him about some real trouble that I'd gotten into on the university campus, and I was squeezed by the right, by the left, by Christians, by Jews. Everybody was mad at me, and I told him this privately, and we were all there were 15 or 20 bishops, and we were all having coffee, and I felt very honored to be in the midst of all these bishops. And right in the middle of the reception, he said, "May I have your attention, please? Father Carlisle, will you please tell us the story you told me?" It was like, oh my God.
Oh no,
The
that was for
reason
you.
the reason he wanted me to do that is because this, and my friend Zama Mangaliso, who was with me, he's the one who told me this. He said the reason that the Arch wanted you to tell that story is because he's been in that situation so many times.
Right, right, right,
And,
right.
and in
That's
some
beautiful.
ways, that's the situation that we're all called into, to speak the truth. Because
Hmm.
if if everyone's agreeing, like in all likelihood, it ain't the truth.
Right. True that. True. That's the truth right there. Love that. So let's just take a moment over here. I like to say that we are the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, and we're located in North Bergen, New Jersey. Now, what is it that we do? We do a multitude of things. One of them, our staple, seems to be the breath work with the ice plunge. Right, I put people through this power breaths to oxygenize the cells in their body. It's a calling for me. It's a long story, but here I am. And then after the breath work, then we bring them outside to a big tub with a lot of water and a lot of ice, and they get into it, and I coach them through it for 2 minutes. What's it good for? All these things are great for many things. The science is here. uh, I'm not against a placebo. It's not a placebo, but I'm not against, if it works, it works. But the science is there. It helps to keep inflammation down in your body. 85% or so of all sicknesses come from inflammation. So it also helps you to steady your mind, PTSD and those type of depressions and stuff like that, or a broken heart, or sometimes you just want to write that book or start that business and you just can't seem to do it. This is one of the tools that help us. It's a
Mm.
powerful, powerful tool, and it's an ancient one. So anybody who made this popular, I usually don't mention them because they don't mention me on their podcast. So, but no, really, seriously, it's extremely helpful. We're going to be having one very soon. I think in a couple of weeks or so. I have to put that on the calendar. But we also do gatherings too, and one of our big one is called the Purple Sage, the Purple Sage Gathering. Why the purple sage? One of the reasons is because, according to some of the scriptures, when they were beating Jesus, right, they threw him a robe and they said it was a purple robe. Why? They could have said it was an orange one, or they could have said it was just a robe, or they could have said they threw him a towel or something like that. So purple has that significance about being here on the crown, always connected to God. And then sage, if you know anything about it, it clears out the negative energy, which is also an ancient thing too.
Mm.
So
Cool.
that Purple Sage Gathering is taking place in May. I believe it's May. I have to get the exact dates on that because it's fairly new. I take that back now. Now I think it's in April. So I'll put that all in the show notes. That way nobody will miss out. But let me know if you guys are interested. Stay to the end, and we'll be able to help you out with a little bit of something pertaining those events. So, Christopher, have you ever ice plunged before?
I have not. I
Yep.
have not.
It pushes you into the present moment, brother. It
Yeah.
pushes, like, you can't think like, hey, did I turn off the stove before I left the house? No, none of
Yeah.
that, brother. No.
Yeah. No, as it's interesting because as you were describing it, I was just imagining, a cold shower is enough, but I
Yep.
was just imagining just the dramatic uh,
Mm-hmm.
information that must chemically, right, in the
Yep.
body.
Exactly. It starts firing off chemicals into your system, cortisol, and it taps into your fight or flight. Like, what are you doing? Get out of here. And but
Mm,
you
mm,
you come out like elated with the dopamine rush that you
mm,
receive, all these
mm,
endorphins, like positive energy. You come out, you're like, whoa, I can conquer the world, man,
mm,
stuff like that.
mm, mm.
So
Very
it's
cool.
helpful. It's
Yeah.
very, very cool. It's helpful. But yes, now let's get into some of these books. I need to know, man. You have these fascinating books. You said that the first one that you did write was Pickett's
Yeah.
Dream. Was that the first one that was
Yeah.
published or not?
Well, no. So it's the second one published.
Mm,
For Theirs is the Kingdom was the first, uh, and that was published about 4 years ago now, and then Pickett just about not even a year ago, and Pickett was the one that was initially written 30 years ago and really reflects where I started out, even though I rewrote it to publish it a year ago. And because so much has changed, the thing about Pickett's Dream is that I wrote it. It was really kind of it's a love story, and it's about a very sort of hard to figure out, somewhat mysterious priest who, as it turns out, is in love with a woman that he met when he was a paper boy and was in Providence, Rhode Island, and then he the narrator, who's sort of a blue-blooded guy, encounters him accidentally, and anyway, the story unravels, and ultimately, this priest who grew up in working class Pawtucket, Rhode Island, comes to Newport, gets a job in Newport, navigated by the woman who's also in love with him, and he suddenly buys one of the mansions on Bellevue Avenue in Newport. And the question is, how did he do it? Why did he do it? And the book was originally just about this contradiction between a working class priest and this fabulous wealth that he exhibits, but what has changed, and I still think that I wrote that so in the go-go 80s, that was the sort of yuppie period, and I do believe that the mess we're in now got some of its nourishment from the go-go 80s, and the mentality that we see now about money and wealth and the greed and that we see really oddly, started at the time when I was writing the story at the beginning. And there's a bad guy, a tennis champion who really typifies, it's all about me. It's all about winning. That's it, So, but given what's happened and the incredible injustices of rich and poor, the widening gap between rich and poor, inspired me to reframe the story, and so we find out that this enigmatic, hard to figure out priest actually has this enterprise with a lot of homeless folks in Newport, creating a newspaper that sustains people who are living on the street. And I really reframed that story to ask the question, what's the relationship between wealth and poverty? What's the relationship between people who are rich and people who are poor? How do we crack this? We all love beautiful things. We all love, comfort. But what about the people who are getting rained on or snowed on, who have nothing? Do they deserve that? And do we deserve the warmth of a big house? And so those questions get asked, and the narrator, who himself is born into a lot of privilege, really gets derailed by this priest and by this whole question. And he ends, well, I won't tell you how he ends up, but his life gets changed forever.
Amazing. I could see you are all in that book, all over the place. I could see that.
Well, I mean, it's the very, like I grew up in relative comfort and wealth, and I got, not wealth, but I mean, I was a upper middle class kid who got given college and all that kind of thing. And and when my family, my grandfather was a bishop of Montreal, and there was all that stuff, all that kind of blue-blooded stuff. And then what happened was I opened the Bible and read about Jesus, and holy cow, where I came from didn't have a lot to do with that. And
Right.
so then the question is, how do I put these things together? Like how do I put that part of myself that loves, fast cars and all that stuff, with people who are hurting and who need me, and by the way, whom I need, because without them in my life is impoverished.
Yes, I could see that. I could see. That's amazing. Yes. I often struggle with some of these things also. Like I thought about democracy. It's and it it's good, but then it's not good for other people too.
Mm,
And in this country, you could do anything. Well, you could prosper, you could have quite a bit in your life, you could, but then who's paying for that too? There are other people who don't have those opportunities. And if you win, you win big, but here if you lose, wow, you lose big
that's
here
it.
too,
You
man.
know,
Yeah, it's
and
there's
that's
there's
when
the Go ahead, I'm
you
sorry.
feel like, sorry,
Mhm.
I'm
Continue.
just going to say that's when you feel like, uh, this isn't a democracy. I mean, democracy is everyone having equal access to the system. And if you look at capitalism now, it is less and less about
Mhm.
access.
Right, right, right. Capitalism. That's the one. That's the one. The word I was looking for sure. Yeah, it's not a good system. It's not. There's many systems that are not good, but there's a gentleman that I'm thinking about. His name is Jacques something or other. He passed on. He had the Venus Project that he was
Mm,
considered a free man,
mm,
um, but he was doing things that he felt for his cause, and
mm,
he was talking about how societies they're way out. Like we
mm,
should be growing food everywhere. First of
mm,
all, like even on the roofs of every house, they should have food.
mm,
Should not have food being trucked in from some other location if something goes wrong. Like
mm,
we're really rude.
mm,
He also thought about the politicians that we speak about in these governments. How he feels that if anything, a scientist should be a leader.
mm,
Why? Because 2 and 2 is 4 here, and 2 and 2 is 4 in Alaska and in
mm,
Japan. Like
mm,
it's science. They work with
mm,
facts,
mm,
where
mm,
politicians don't really have to
mm,
work with none of
mm,
those facts.
mm,
Most of it's not facts. It's just
mhm.
your facts.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
he had some great ideas, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. What this is a sort of tangential thing, but
Mhm,
I had a guy who mentored me. Who was a kind of a wild. He died at age 94,
mm.
about a year ago.
Jack
Um,
Fresco.
a Roman Catholic priest who married and had a child and was still a Roman Catholic priest, and he was a contemplative and always in trouble with the
Wow.
institution. But he said, and there's some wonderful. I mean, I would recommend to anybody reading quotes from Einstein about the universe and about the structure of creation as being really ultimately pointing to a creator.
Mm,
But anyway, this friend Armand, he said the greatest prophet of the 20th century is Albert Einstein,
mm,
precisely because he understands that not only are we post-denominational, meaning that denominations, Catholic, Episcopalian, Baptist, so on,
mm,
not only do those not work,
mm,
but religious traditions,
mm,
as they've been kind of, packaged, don't
mm,
work either, and that science, and I believe one thing that you didn't that I didn't mention to you, I think, was that I wrote a book called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Understanding Intelligent Design. I don't know if you know intelligent design, but it's this idea that God had to have created everything,
mm.
and the problem with the argument is that the science is no good. But that's not to say that they didn't get the right answer for the wrong reason, and that's sort of what what I Penguin asked me to write this fair-handed, talk about intelligent design, because scientists are here, and conservative religious people are here, and they're like this all the time. But one of the things that I concluded after I wrote that book is that in 50 years, science and what we now understand as religion will be best friends. Right now, they're like siblings beating on each other. But religion, and this is what Einstein said. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind.
Albert Einstein was one of the gentlemen that I was thinking about, where he said, question everything. Question everything. Yeah.
Oh, it's the journey. It's the joy.
It is. Now you have this other book. Let's talk a bit about that one. For theirs is the kingdom, right? Yeah. And this one here, the title alone is quite interesting. And then I was reading a bit about it too, right? So tell us a little bit more.
Well, so for theirs is the kingdom is obviously a great prayer and a saying of Jesus. For theirs is the kingdom, and what we don't normally understand is theirs refers to the poor, to people who are suffering poverty. And so for theirs is the kingdom is a story. It's actually set in Montreal, which is a city that I just adore. And my wife is actually a Montrealer. So she and other people in my family introduced me to that city. So in fact, one of the people who reviewed the book said the best character in For Theirs is the Kingdom is Montreal itself, because I drilled down on the magnificence of that city, from the gleaming towers to the dark alleys where the action takes place. And it's based on, as I said, my experiences on the street. And I create a character, Luke Hale, who's a real renegade, and he's always in trouble with the institution, and he's sort of protected by a bishop who really loves what he's doing and knows that it's what the bishop, should be doing too. And anyway, he runs into a very ambitious young Ivy League guy who comes to Montreal to be the dean of the cathedral, like the head of the cathedral, and then becomes the bishop, and gets ultimately. Well, I won't tell you what happens there either. But is
that Luke? Is that Luke?
That's Luke. Luke Hale, yeah, and he he's got this street ministry in the old city. Back when the old city, now it's sort of more upscale, but back then it was empty. It was, as I say in the text, hollow as a drum. And but he has these industrial lights that he sets up in the town squares, and has these big meals, largely based on what we did in Northampton and Greenfield. But it's a real hard scrabble, rough. He's a tough.
He's a renegade priest. He was he apprenticed to a shaman also.
Yeah. So, and this, by the way, is based on a guy that I met in the Amazon. I was doing some environmental work, and he hosted me for a few days on a river. Interesting guy. His name is Luke Weiss, actually, and you could look him up. He does amazing things with the environment and standing over and against oil company drilling and stuff. He's really amazing. But his style, I stole his personal style for Luke Hale in the story. And so it's really, his renegade way in the Amazon happens in the streets of Montreal. And Luke is very much he's a shaman, um, and a part of that whole indigenous religious experience and culture. Um, and in the story, for theirs is the kingdom, he doesn't lose that. In fact, he sees his Amazon understanding of life as being absolutely resonating with the life of Jesus. So he gets into a lot of, I mean, the institutional people, bishops and priests, don't like him very much.
That's good. That's good. We like those guys.
Yeah, we need those guys.
We need those guys. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we really do. That's beautiful. And I can see that both of the books are on Amazon. And I've done my best to put that information there, but I'll also put them in the show notes because this show sits on YouTube
Right.
and Facebook, and then there's Instagram, and there's Spotify as an audio too, and different platforms. So we want to be able to put those notes down there. And these books, they look dynamite, man. I'm always fascinated with people who write books, right? Because when I was a kid and I looked at books, like it was all these pages. I was like, who wrote this? Who put all these yeah, it's like this is a lot of words. Like I was so impressed with that.
Yeah.
And then I have books inside of me too, and one
Yeah.
of them that is like burning, it just keeps poking at me with that hot burning, like, all right, okay, it is like, let's
Yep.
go.
Yep. You got to do it now.
Yeah,
We got this on tape.
I know. I see that. I know this now. I know that. That's right. Yep. So where can people find you, if they're looking for you?
Well, I mean, I should be more active on social media than I am, but I'm on Facebook. But my website is christophercarlisle.com.
Mm,
And that shows the books, and then I'm also on Facebook, and
mm.
not so much on Instagram. Believe it or not, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and whenever I get desperate, like when I was trying to get on before this show, I call her in. The problem is she's at school, so that was a moment.
Yeah, that's all right. We have to learn. We got to get in the deep water and swim out a bit. Yeah.
That's
It's an extreme learning curve. Like when I started doing all of this, like wow, I had to up my game. Like,
yeah,
whoa, big
yeah,
time, bro. Yeah.
yeah,
But I do have a background in IT, so that helps
yeah.
also. But
That's
I was the guy people were coming to for help. Like, who do
yeah.
I go to now? Yeah.
You better watch out. I'm going to be coming to you for help from now
I
on.
know. That's right. No worries. I'll help you. And trust me, I
Right.
will. I will. So you're located now, you're in the state of Massachusetts?
Yeah, I'm in Western Massachusetts, right outside of Amherst,
Okay.
which is where the University of Massachusetts is, and a bunch of other colleges.
Mm,
And then I spend, I'm up in Montreal actually from time to time,
mhm,
quite a bit, just by virtue of my wife's family being there and my infatuation with that city.
yeah.
I can't recommend it enough. It's a very
Mhm,
young,
mhm, mhm,
beautiful,
mm.
cool music,
Right, right.
beautiful streets, and then also these back alleys that you just want to
Mm, mm,
spend time in. It's a
yeah,
wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful place.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I can see people reaching out to you for a whole multitude of advice and stories and stuff like that. So
Well, thank you
thank
so
you.
much,
Of
Omar, for
course, of
having me
course,
on. I greatly
of course,
appreciate it.
of course. Same here. I'm gonna put you backstage just for a moment. I'm gonna close right up, and I'm gonna continue talking with you. So stay right there.
Great.
There you have it, guys. Wow, that was fascinating. He's got 2 books under his belt and other things as well. He's working with people that are disenfranchised and destitute and those type of things, the way Jesus really intended it. So think about that, guys. The next time you're out there helping somebody, do it. Don't hesitate. Peace.